Greetings and welcome to Epic BattleCry! This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal on the gaming industry. Today, I am Britt Adams, joined by my hobbyists of havoc, my dilettantes of disaster, Tony Grice and Daniel Kaiser. What's up, guys?
Please promise me you're going to talk.
I feel like you are in pain every time you intro something. Like you sound like you're pulling a muscle.
And please promise me you're going to talk to your daughter like that, like through her entire
She sat right here in the office with me earlier this week when Lauren and I were doing the X Factor, and Lauren was like, do you want to wait and record the episode like after like she lays down for a nap or something so you don't scare her? I was like, you know what, like let's just roll with it and see what she thinks. And so I recorded like that screaming intro to the X Factor with her sitting right beside me. And she was just looking at me the whole time. As a matter of fact, you can actually hear me, like if you listen to it, you can hear me like smiling because she's just like staring at me like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I can't
different.
I can't wait for her first day in preschool to be A, B, she's like C.
That's exactly right. So
Friday,
anyway,
guys, happy Friday.
Happy Freya's Day, everybody. We are going to field a question today from Robert Borland, who is at RJM Borland on Twitter, and he says, at EpicBattleX, I would be interested in hearing the group's interests outside of gaming, and if you think there is any overlap with gaming. I know that there's tons and tons of stuff to talk about there. DK, what about you? You got any interests outside of gaming?
Yeah, of course. I have a ton of interest outside of gaming. I'm just trying. As
mostly,
far as the overlap. Yeah, that is an interest of mine, being here in Denver. But
I like how you always qualify it as if I've only had this interest in weed since it's been legal in the state in which I reside.
Exactly, it is legal within the state that I reside. So anyway, the as far as my specific interest, I've mentioned on the show numerous times that I used to be a drummer. I'm huge into sports. Right now, and especially over the last, I'm 36 years old. So, I've the last probably 6 or 7 years, I've been really trying to get outdoors and get active. So that's a huge active of mine. I would say the area of highest interest that I have right now is the outdoor type of stuff. And that has pretty much zero overlap with gaming, but the other areas, music and sports, specifically music, certainly does have overlap with the gaming, because I listen to game music, and I actually go out of my way to critique how the music is impacting the overall experience. And my perception of a game will largely, in part, depend on whether or not I deem not just the music, the construction of the actual, the composition of the soundtrack, but the ambience, the actual sound design is something that's an area of interest of mine. And also, I really love, like you, Brent, like cinematography and other stuff as well. So those aspects, I think, those interests of mine definitely influence what I feel makes a great game in a cinematic way. And I don't feel games need to push them so far. I think one of the reasons I love Mass Effect was that it was very ambient, had a lot of character, was very cinematic, and also technologically pushed the limits and bounds of what the RPG genre was. So that is a franchise that kind of spoke to me on a lot of different levels, aside from just the gameplay. The creative composition of that series up until part 3 really kind of spoke to me a lot. So yeah, those are some of my interests. I wish there was a way. There's all this motion stuff, which you would think, well, I run quite a bit. I run probably about 25 to 35 miles a week. And you would think
that's a lot, man.
It's a decent amount, and you would think that coming back, I'd be all crazed about the Kinect and all this other stuff. I just don't see it. To me, there's no connection between those things. If I'm gonna do that, I'm going outside. That's a passion of mine, an interest of mine. I'm going outside to do it as much as I can, and I don't want to do that. It's a disassociation, and I know they've been pushing for years to try to make that stuff work. It just doesn't make any sense to me, So I don't know. I hope
it is kind of funny. It's one of those things. I think they think that it's this perfect melding melding of like technology and what what that audience would want,
right?
And it just really isn't. It's not. It's just not the same. It's not.
Like,
and it doesn't.
Some of the technology, like I use Runkeeper as an app. And,
I was going to ask if you use like a petometer or something like that.
Yeah, some of that stuff is really cool.
It's neat too, because I've used it a few times too, because I went running once. And it tracks like where you go, and I want to go to New York sometime, like somewhere has really nice, like clear cut, like one block sections, and I want to run a little Mario character.
There you go. You should do it.
Like make the little outline of them.
You should put that on your bucket list and do it.
Yeah, I probably won't, because it would include running, which is not one of my hobbies.
What are some of your hobbies then, Tone?
Well, so like I've always been into just into electronics in general. I've worked retail electronic sales for like almost 15 years until just recently. And a big part of
how is that lawsuit coming, by the way?
A big part of being around like that sort of stuff all the time is you're really I'm always reading up on the new technologies that are coming out, like the new technologies of TVs and stereos, computers, electronics, all this sort of stuff. And that has always been a big, like one of the first times I got into computers in general was for emulators. I remember like I was huge into gaming at the time, was playing at that time I guess it was like Super NES, Genesis, things like that. And and I remember one of the first things is I loved the Neo Geo games. I'd always go to the arcades and play Neo Geo games, and I love the idea that you could have that essentially that exact same game, not a port, not a conversion. I mean, sometimes they did change options, but it was the same. Like if you set the settings, it's the exact same game. And but I just didn't have the cash. Didn't have the kind of money.
Because the system was how much? Like
system starting out was $699, I think. $700.
Well, awesome.
That was not honestly. That's not the problem. Like realistically, and I know that sounds crazy. You could buy the system.
Money bags.
Well, no, but I'm just saying you could buy the system. You could save up and buy the system, because I mean the consoles that it was like $200. I mean, you could have eventually done it, but the cartridges were $200 and $300.
Yeah.
Like I mean, so every game you bought would be like a new system. You know what I mean? So anyway, it was just one of those things that I love the idea of it, and that was one of the first things that I really got into computers for, was because I heard about emulators, and one of the very first emulators I ever ran was Neo Rage X, which is this Neo Geo emulator.
Is it still around?
It's not really. No, it's been melded into other things, and I mean there is still a version of it out there. But basically, use like MAME and MESS and all kinds of other emulators out there to do the same sort of stuff. But there's a blue million options. But the thing I love is I got to try in some cases games that were never released, over here in the States. Games in some cases that were never released, period. Like you can, find prototypes of old Genesis games and Super Nintendo games, and hacks of different kinds of games. You can play, games that have been they've put translations in for Japanese games that never made it over here. And that was one thing. Like my kind of love of electronics, love of like keeping up with that stuff. Really helped me appreciate some of the things that like I never would have experienced were it not for that. You know what I mean? And so those two things were pretty strongly connected. Matter of fact, to the point where like we talked about earlier in the week, our favorite system. We mentioned the PC. Brent and I both kind of said PC because for emulators. So essentially, you can play everything up through like the Wii. The Wii through Dolphin emulator is 10 times more gorgeous than it is on the actual hardware. Yeah. There's as long as
as soon as I boot it up, I'm like, fuckaroo, Dolphin.
but anyway, so that would be mine. What do you think, Brent? What's where are you at on that?
I'm looking around my office here, just like all the crap that I've got in
the Brad
here.
Pitt posters?
How does pornography tie into gaming? Is
pornography overlaps in my gaming? No,
there's a lot of overlap.
For me, I'm just really into
It's a lot of lap.
anything creative. My background is in filmmaking, and I'm really passionate about that. Photography, writing, and music, and just anything to do with those are that's just those are the things that I really love doing, and I've been in bands over the years and stuff, and I like creating music. I've made films. I like writing. I love watching movies and talking about movies. As a matter of fact, if you don't know, Tony and I have another podcast that we do called the Drive Home Breakdown.
Yes.
At drivehomebreakdown.com. That is just about, like he and I going to the movies and talking about the film, which we've done for years and years and years, and just finally decided to make a podcast out of it. We'll like watch movies and do kind of like DVD commentary style critique and analysis and stuff. And I just love that. I love films and filmmaking, and certainly that has been has been an overlap into video games in terms of my appreciation and what I look for in gaming and how effective they are at either telling stories or at kind of creating a world in the imagination. I was thinking about that when you were talking about Mass Effect, Daniel, and in the same way that when I was a kid and Star Wars created an entire universe in my mind, and it was one of those things that you could imagine so many amazing things happening in that world. Right. Mass Effect did the same thing for me the first time I played that game, and then there have been other games too, but not just a game that is about a really compelling story, which there are plenty of games that are, not just a game that's about a really amazing gameplay experience, which there plenty are. But I do love those games. That's probably
why you love Red Dead so much.
That's exactly what I was about to mention. Yeah, that's why I love Red Dead Redemption so much. Is that it was one of those games that brought an entire world to life in the imagination. So anyway,
and it's funny because both of those things, like all those things you're talking about for you, and all the things you talked about for you, Tony, is like I just associate those things with you guys. Like those are your favorite things. Whenever I have a question about technology or a device or something, I mean, Tony, you're the first person that I message, and Brent, if I have a question about gear, camera stuff, or like anything to do with cinematography or any type of editing stuff, I'm always reaching out to you. So it's just funny how those things, and
when I want to know whether the Rangers lost or not, I call you.
Oh, I forgot to mention it. I love hockey. I love playing hockey. I play ice hockey every week. I love it. It's my favorite thing.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we're picking the one thing. I mean, my God, we're into so many things. I mean, there's if we were to name off every musical artist we like, or every movie that we like, or book that we enjoyed, or whatever. I mean, it would just there's tons of stuff. I tell you honestly, the one thing I really to sort of maybe tie things up to a certain degree, I love talking to these two guys. And I know that sort of sounds I know that maybe sort of sounds goofy or whatever, but I'll be genuinely honest. Like DK and I have known each other for a long, long time. We even lived together for a short period of time. And one of the things is there's just whenever I talk to Daniel, there's a certain comfort level that I have with him that I only have with him. Yeah. There's certain things we can joke about.
For years helped with that.
It does. But there's that thing that you really there's just that thing like we can joke about certain things that honestly I know if I talk to Brent about he'll be like that's fucking stupid. But I love that we can.
You're totally right about that too.
But on the other side though, Brent and I we literally have. I mean, usually, we'll
every
talk
once
on
in
the
a while, phone like anywhere between 8 and 12 hours.
I was going to say, I would love to see just a log of the amount of minutes that you guys have spent.
Oh Lord, I mean, most of our conversations go until one of our phones dies or something. Really, we'll get on the phone and just talk about stuff. And frankly, it's funny because we'll just go down a list of we should make a movie, we should do this, and we'll fill the whole thing out, and then 3 hours later, we'll be like. All right, well, I'm gonna go to bed, man. I guess I'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll do something. We'll think of something new, But that really, and that's a big reason why. That's a big reason why I still do this podcast is because, frankly, it's as good as any excuse to talk to two of my best friends.
There you go, man.
I agree.
And you guys too. When you guys come on, I can talk to you guys. Because I talk to them
before I actually get on Skype.
That's right.
With you guys.
Yeah, because every time we record, I talk to them. Now, I think we all feel the same way. I mean, the reason that we've done the show so consistently throughout the years, and the reason that we're doing it now,
especially now
in this new format, where we're not, we don't have corporate backing, we're not getting paid to do it or have any kind of freelance contract or whatever. The reason we're still doing it now is that because it's just fun to hang out and talk about this stuff every week. And
totally.
The thing that's cool is that I feel like there's so much overlap in our interests and everything, but in terms of like our tastes and our ideas and things like that, it's different enough that it always makes the conversations fun and interesting.
It is uncanny how every movie, not every, but I would say 90% of the movies that I really like, Tony hates, and the exact opposite is true. When we were living together, he'd be like, dude, that movie was awesome, and I'd watch it, I'm like, this is crap. And then like I'd watch a movie and be like, dude, that movie's awesome, and he'd be like, this is crap. Like seriously. And yet,
but I mean, the thing was, we could still we still weren't like, you're a fucking idiot, I never want to talk to you again because your taste is so bad.
I remember vividly us walking away from that restaurant. This was E3 a few years ago. It was when Game 7 was happening at the Nokia Center, and we were desperately trying to find some place to eat after the last day of E3.
Lakers,
And Lauren used his magical powers and got us into that restaurant.
Like some juice bell.
and I vividly remember we were walking down Figueroa.
It's called Cash Money.
That's exactly what it's called.
That is the juice bell.
We were walking down Figueroa back towards the hotel, and you and Tony spent like the entire 8 blocks arguing about whether or not the Beatles were really influential on modern music or not.
I think I won that.
I don't think I would have argued they were influential on that. I think I just argued whether they were all that great.
Like the whole trip.
That was funny.
Oh my God. So, Robert, there you go. I hope that answered your question. We're into lots and lots of stuff. Some of it has to do with gaming, some of it doesn't. But the real thing this podcast is about, the thing that we are into is each other, which is to say other dudes. And that's the overlap with gaming that brings us back every week.
Maybe I didn't word myself.
Hold on a second. No.
Well...
But anyway, Robert Borland, thank you so much for the question. And if you have a question for us or a news story
from the rebranding,
is that
we're into other
dudes.
If you have a question that you would like us to answer, a comment you'd like us to respond to, a news story you would like us to discuss on a future episode of Epic Battle Cry, you know where to find us at Epic Battle Axe on Twitter, epicbattleaxe.com if you're a member of the Axehead Army. You can leave a comment here on our YouTube channel. Please throw us a like, subscribe to us. We really appreciate the love. Help get the word out. Keep the Epic Battle Cry train rolling all night long. We appreciate it. Everybody, we'll be back next week with a new set of episodes. Until then, cry havoc and let your voice be heard.
Have an awesome weekend, dudes.